Well, up and flipping up and away, gentlemen. Welcome aboard for the next fast ride on the E2KG bullet train. We are thinner, lighter, more agile, and ready for the next era of enough to keep going entertainment. Here with me, as always, I have Mr. SwissGuard. How you doing, Swiss?
I wanted to say it was a new era of E2KG. But other than that, I'm doing well. I'm excited for the new format. So
and DBq Hams, old, aged, wizened veteran of this podcast. How are you, fine sir?
I am just fine. Thank you for allowing me to continue. No. Right, this is great. We're back. We've got a little bit of a trimmed show format here, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about that. But really, when you started off the podcast, it just made me. It was my Midwest '70s folk, that I almost started singing up and away. So I am glad that is not the direction you went, because that would have been not necessarily an energetic note to start. So, but we've got a lot of stuff to cover tonight. We got a lot of stories. There's plenty of games that are coming out, but really, that's not what we're going to talk about tonight, because this is not the gaming experience show, is it, Agasicles?
So if you have not been keeping up, here's what's going on. Here's the dealio. So we have previously done a few different formats, most recently the off-maligned, frequently unmentioned deep dive format, which was kind of our news show. It was a second and third evolution of our news show, which was picking a smaller number of stories and doing deeper analysis on very specific topics. And kind of orienting them around a certain theme. And then we have had for some time our gamer experience show. Largely, we are keeping both of those formats. We are just collapsing them to one show and doing them every other week. So that's the deal. I also, for various reasons, feel not very chained or bound to stay entirely on the rails tonight. So this particular episode might be a little looser because I think some of the things we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about services tonight, I think it's fair to allow us some reach back to some other topics that have crested the horizon over kind of the last month, because a lot of these stories aren't really individual announcements in and of themselves. They're kind of culminating swings of the bat on some running themes that have been going on for quite some time. So let's get to it. First news story topic theme, first point of entry that we're going to use to get into this is we're going to talk a little bit about Nintendo's cloud saves. One thing we didn't do is we didn't really assign news stories before we got started. DBq, I want to say, no, Swiss. Okay, great. May I have a volunteer?
I'll take it, because really, I'm gonna hit it and move on, because I don't. This is more of a news story than it should be, right?
Okay, before I let you run with it and check out the new social media, why don't you go ahead and do the intro, and then Swiss has a bunch of things to follow up. What I really want to get into is, as far as I believe, I think both of you have queued this up to have some level of experience, both with your own personal accounts and your family accounts. So go ahead and kibitz the light spectacular, and I'm going to do this.
All right. So Swiss, you and I have talked about the Nintendo online service the last couple of weeks here, right? We've been able to nurse a couple of weeks out of this related to not only the announcement and then the implementation, but now the fact that during that implementation, Nintendo said that your cloud saves would not be stored once your subscription lapses or that you cancel it. And what they've subsequently come out and announced is that they are saving cloud saves for up to 6 months after your subscription lapses. So you do have the opportunity to come back or to kind of grab a month here and there if you're trying to save that. And really, this is the reason it became a news story, is because Nintendo just said, we're not saving them indefinitely, but never really defined it. Where in Sony's case, this is exactly the same thing that happens with PlayStation Plus, but because Sony has just announced the definitions of it and the scope of it from the beginning, it was a non-factor. But the fact that Nintendo is always a little tight-lipped sometimes with some of their online services and their rollouts, that it ended up becoming much more of a news story than it should be. So that's the only real cloud safe piece I have to talk about here. We have talked about the Nintendo service and the family plans. The different, if you have different Nintendo IDs and different accounts on your Switch, make sure that you're only going to be able to play those games online, or even have access to some of the things like the Nintendo Online, the NES games, if you have a family plan that allows multiple IDs to use that versus just the single ID. So Swiss, I think that was all I had. Do you have any other? Have you guys been playing a little bit more on any of those NES classics, or has the online thing? Is my read here off? Is it a non-issue, or is this something that really should be more of a discussion point?
Honestly, it's been pretty much transparent to my family. I don't even think that my kids know that there's an NES Classic on the Switch currently, and I haven't played it personally, but everybody just kept playing Splatoon, and there was no hiccups. So at least with that, it went, went off without a hitch. We haven't gotten to the point yet to really experiment with the cloud saves or anything like that. But, we don't yet have like ARMS or Mario Kart Deluxe or anything like so. Splatoon pretty much continued. And so for now in our household, Nintendo Online is a success.
Everything works the way it used to work the day before they flipped the Switch. So, anyhow, but I don't know if Agasicles has a whole lot to say on this one, but I think this is a pretty easy segue into another Nintendo announcement that came shortly after the Nintendo Direct, was that Assassin's Creed Odyssey was going to be streaming in Japan. And now, today please jump in.
I'm holding you. Move aside.
Okay.
Move aside, gentlemen. Give me some elbow room. So,
hold on. Here comes the rant. This is where the off the rails begins, people.
I wanted to bridge this into, and maybe you guys already covered this, perhaps on an episode that I wasn't on. I'm still overall bothered by the complete amateur hour that the rollout of the Nintendo online services has been. The lack of communication, the confusion. You guys seem to have maybe weathered it better than I thought. Because here's my thing. It's September, right? Kids are going back to school. Everybody's super busy. Some people work in the education industry. It's busy for them. You have this thing to manage. In the midst of holiday releases that are starting to drop left and right, is this the experience that you needed, right? So in a world where the question is, this is the Nintendo online service. Is this the Nintendo online service that you needed, or is it the one that you wanted? Because I don't know that it's both.
Here's the way I viewed it. I just wanted to make sure that there wouldn't be riots in my house when we couldn't access the Splatoon 2 servers. So I don't care about being part of a broader online community. I don't need to, family members have friends lists for people that they met online, but Nintendo downplays that. They just wanted some, I don't know if it's a revenue driver or they just needed something to be able to manage their, some more revenue to cover server costs. But I am not looking at this as a competitor with, PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live or anything like that. It's purely, I just need to be able to connect to the Nintendo servers. And with that, put my credit card information in, it activated on my account, and I was good to go. So the idea of having the NES Classic and all that jazz, it's just gravy to me. That being said, I am what you would call an introverted antisocial gamer, and actually introverted antisocial. Probably I'm cantankerous and I don't like people. So Nintendo Online.
I would just call you a strong single player narrative type of gamer. How about that?
I'm also a pessimist, which is why I described it in the way. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, I'm not as concerned with the broader spectrum of features. So, yeah, I wish we would have had some more clarity on the cloud saves. Yes, it would have been nice if they would have detailed from the get-go the list of features that they intended to have. Like, it just felt, like you said, I mean, it felt amateurish, yes, but it wasn't something where I'm expecting a lot of bells and whistles. You know, when you distill it down to its essence, it's like, look, they're just charging you to have a Nintendo account now so you can access online. There was no broad change of an experience. I didn't log in and suddenly have a bunch of different features or tools at my disposal as a Nintendo account. It's just they put a paywall in front of it. And so I'm thinking that you want it to be more than it is. And you may be right to demand in 2018 that a major console provides these features online. I just had lower expectations.
So I didn't really have any super high expectations for what the service delivered. I'm kind of very ambivalent to it. Like, I've survived so long with Nintendo having a non-existent elementary school level online. I mean, I should say online service. They've had a non-existent strategy. I mean, the notion of a strategic bend behind what they wanted to do online has just not existed. It just kind of that didn't bother me. I don't have intense need for my Nintendo Switch to play multiplayer online games. I despise putting in friend codes. That is a friction and a barrier to me even doing it in the first place. But quite honestly, my biggest problem with it is as a gamer, nerd, podcaster, blogger, at having to have a conversation about all of the things that this service was not and all of the things in which it was miscommunicated. This shouldn't have been more than a blip on our radar. It should have just rolled out. Excuse me. It should have provided, 1, 2, or 3 new capabilities. It should have provided a storefront for people to buy their legacy games, which is a thing that to me, that is Nintendo nerd unique. Like, the absolute need to have a storefront to allow you to buy the game that you've already bought 10 different times across multiple systems. Fine. It's cool. I dumpster dive into that stuff every once in a while just because it's there, but I don't have a need for it. Mostly this has just been a big car wreck that has been going on behind me that I keep having to look up in my rearview mirror and look at, right? And then I check the news stories about it when I get home. That's pretty much it. But I was just curious. But I guess if I had an expectation, I had an expectation for Nintendo as a large conglomerate corporation that has been in this particular game for multiple decades to have figured out how to do this better. And in fact, I guess overall, now that I really think about it, it seems like there's been some weird, I want to say down steps. I don't quite know if I can call it that, but ever since Nintendo America load shed its PR staff and forced them to move, I think, to the East Coast a few years ago, there seems to have been these. That
was more than a few years ago. I mean, that was Per Kaplan time. So that was smack dab kind of mid-cycle in the Wii generation.
Yeah, but I guess to me, because there's only been like 2 or 3 like 2.5 generations of Nintendo stuff. It feels like not that long ago. So yeah, it feels like there are these weird things that happen from a PR perspective that are inexplicable, right? Like the Nintendo Directs that just all of a sudden happen on a weekday with no advance notice and announce like 20-something indie titles, right? It feels like
getting an unexpected package delivered at your house. It's like, hey, I got Amazon. I don't know how.
You're right.
But like calling it a car wreck, though, to me, like a car wreck and a disaster would be if they launched it And as people were signing in, their servers crashed, and then the whole system was down for 24 hours or something. Like, to me, that's a car wreck. So, not now. Is it perfect? Was the marketing department like super? They creamed the crop? No, but I think it's a little bit unfair to describe it as a dumpster fire when it worked. They put the paywall in front of the accounts, and it's limited feature set. It's still a limited feature set, but technically it didn't crash and burn.
Yeah, I think it works, and I think it gets a buy and a pass simply because of its cost, right? If this were Xbox Live or PlayStation Network or PS Plus cost, I think the conversations might be different. Go ahead, DB.
No, right. I'm just appreciating Swiss's Nintendo Defense Force coming full on. So yeah, I don't know that it's a car wreck, but it sure as heck is a lemon with some terrible gas mileage. I mean, it is not what we would be looking for in this year, in 2018, in the modern generation of services. You did miss 2 weeks of my cranky get off my lawn, shaking my fist. I can remember having a conversation with Prime, even referencing the Nintendo amiibos behind me and saying, this is still a poor rollout and a poor implementation. And one of the big things that I got on my soapbox about a few weeks ago was about it, for families like Swiss and I, where we have multiple members playing on the same system, and we have, I'm buying one digital copy of a game, but now if I don't set it up correctly, that my kids can't play that digital copy. Or even if I do subscribe to the Nintendo online service, that if I'm the one who's paying for it, but my kids want to play some of the Nintendo online game, the NES games, right? They want to play ice hockey together. They have to log in under my Nintendo ID in order for the app to even launch on the Switch. They can't, there's no such thing as a family structure that is similar to what is on PlayStation, within PlayStation and the PSN network, and also within Xbox Live. There's not that same structure. So yeah.
So there are some warts on this frog, after all. Hi.
Oh yeah, you just the reason that we're not talking about it, and the reason that I'm moving on is because I have gone down the rant channel for multiple weeks.
So before we get to that, real quick,
before you jump into it, I just want to caveat. So I want to caveat my statement about the car wreck is that it was a car wreck of PR and corporate communications, not a technical car wreck. Now I will let you counter or engage with DB on his comments about the technical fidelity of the services being actually provided.
All right. I just want to real quick. I don't know if for example, your example of ice hockey is different, but when my kids play Splatoon 2, they're doing it as themselves. The name, it's their profile name that's on there. I had to create accounts for them. They have their own Nintendo accounts, but to me, it seemed to work fine. Like, I added my kids and they're underneath my parent account, and it's all going. So I don't know how, unless these NES games treat it differently. And I will say that I haven't tried it out.
But you're on the $35 family plan,
right.
So right now I'm only on the $5 a month or the $4 a month individual plan, because I did want to try this out. I wanted to see, if I purchase digital content or if I get an Xbox Live game or a PS Plus game, that my son on his different profile can play that. Where here, if I'm counting those NES Classics games in that same type of value added to the service, that when they tried to launch it, it brought up a pop-up that told them they needed to subscribe to the Nintendo Online service before they could launch it. So it is different if I purchase the digital game.
Family plan, it'd be fine.
Yes.
So it sounds like the licensing token is attached to the human being and their profile, not to the hardware.
Exactly. So yes, if I am on the family plan, it'll be just fine because there's that many people or that many accounts under that. But again, it's I'm not on a family plan for PlayStation or Xbox.
The other thing, I will say though, it sounds like these NES classics are going to be different, and it'll be interesting to see moving forward how Nintendo handles their future games. But like I have children that are part of my my family plan, and then I have a couple of profiles for my younger kids on the Switch because they play Mario or Zelda, and they're not part of my account, and they haven't had any problems playing their downloaded games purchased through the game store, the store eShop. Right now, those don't seem to be tied in any sort of DRM fashion to my service account. But
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So this is my point. My point is that the three of us, who are all college educated, intelligent human beings in advanced technical fields, are having to have this conversation, right? Having to decompose, atomize, and pull this apart so we can understand what the flip it is the two of you have subscribed to, right? And like one of my questions is, right, as I stand on the precipice of this is, so my use case would be, I would buy a second Switch and I would have my kids on that. So how does that work? Right?
It works just fine.
If I'm on the family plan.
If you're on the family plan. Yep, you can have up to 8 Switches, I think, connected.
And your two kids can't play the same game at the same time. So only one person per plan can, like if you download one copy of Mario Kart, you can't have two people on your plan playing Mario Kart on 2 different Switches simultaneously.
Right.
Yes, that is correct. Right? You get a pop-up that says this is trying to be active or this is active some other place.
So one of my quick questions there before we move on is, and this isn't me. Twitter friend of mine, KMed, Kevin Medeiros, who's a developer, one of the very interesting questions he posed out in the ether, which caught me off guard because I just never considered this, is what if your kid wants to play Fortnite, which is a free game?
It's free. So Fortnite, a couple of the other free-to-play games, Warframe is going to be this way. So Fortnite has been out there up in front of this for a while, right, that you do not need the online service to play Fortnite. Okay. On the Nintendo Switch, and the same is true for Paladins. The same is true for some of the other free-to-play games that have been launching this fall.
Okay, and the communications paradigm is still the same, right? You have to route the thing through your phone.
Yeah, unless you're Fortnite, and then you can just use the headphone jack plug-in on the Switch and play it. But yes, everything else, any communication needs to go through the so-called voice chat.
Okay. I will concede that is a dumpster fire of a communications mechanism.
Yeah, it's fine. Look, it doesn't bug me that much. There are other things that I am literally angry about. This is not that big a deal. It's a little deliberately controversial just to get you guys kind of greased up for the start of the podcast and to get you going.
My one comment, one last comment is you talk about the prices, right? When I found out Nintendo was going online, I was annoyed and upset because I'm like, I don't want to pay that much money to ensure that all my family can play. Yeah. So I am more than happy to have a limited set of features, and I only have to pay $35 a year for all of us.
Because you don't have to administer, right? It's not that complicated a thing for you.
Yeah. So,
to deal
but
with it.
I mean, perhaps like I said, I might be a unique use case, or maybe I am the target demographic use case.
No, I think there's that, right? Look, when so 2 houses ago, right? One of the things we moved in, I got Comcast in that area, and the guy came out and I just wanted internet. That's been the case for almost a decade now. The guy came out and he was like, "Hey, look, now we offer like up to like these 10 channels over the internet, so you don't have to get cable. They're just 10 channels. Like you get them. You're paying for them, right? It's no additional cost. It's just a service thing I have to flip on." And I said no, and he's like, "But you're paying for it. Like, why would you not take something that we're already giving you?" I said, "Because that increases my digital footprint of crap that I have to manage inside my household." I was like, I have to pick the 10 channels. I have to be sure that family members are happy with the 10 channels. And then when the channels don't work going to a particular device, then I have to troubleshoot that, right? I was like, no. Right now, I pay for Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Hulu. They come into all of our devices. Everybody knows how to deal with those. And when there's a problem with it, it's because there's an internet problem. And if there's a service problem, you use one of the other 2 services and you don't bother me. So I was just like, no, I don't need a 4th thing, right, that I have to. So I feel like that's kind of the same thing, right? I appreciate, DB, what you're saying in terms of it doesn't deliver the entire breadth of service capability that PlayStation Plus, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live do. But the more that those things do, the more the burden is on you guys as parents to have to administer it if it's a problem or to get it working. Now, if you have one child that's of the age that can play on that platform, maybe that's not a big deal. But if you have multiple children, right, or if you have strata of children, some who can be on the service but not, so I get it. But let's talk about something that does make me angry, and that's PlayStation and crossplay and their arrogance. So finally, Fortnite crossplay comes to PlayStation 4 so that it can interact with all the other services. The good on ya for them, in my opinion, for this is that it is not only crossplay, but it also provides cross progression, which was really the thing that was chapping my hide. Is like, I pay for a thing somewhere, you're telling me I can't bring it with me to your platform, and your claim is that the reason is because your platform is the best place to play. And I've talked about how much that grated me in terms of its arrogance. Have you guys taken advantage of this? Do you have strong feelings of it?
I have strong feelings about their justification, which was completely asinine. But I understand from a business perspective that they want to cut. Like, I get it. Is that cut worth the PR hit? Apparently not now, we know. But no, we're not going to share because PlayStation is the best platform to play on. Like, that just made me mentally note. And I have a PS4 switching to PC. I am never playing Fortnite. I'm probably not going to play Fortnite again anyway. But I'm never playing Fortnite on PS4. So just for that reason, because they annoyed me.
So I would like to use my time to read through selected segments of the PlayStation blog post that announces this, right? So following a comprehensive evaluation process, yada, 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 paragraph, for 24 years, we have strived to deliver the best gaming experience to our fans. In recognition of this, we have completed a thorough analysis of the business mechanics required to ensure that the PlayStation experience for our users remains intact today, and in the future, we look to open up the platform. All of that is after a year ago when Epic accidentally turned on crossplay between Xbox and PlayStation for a weekend, and then said, oops, afterward, right? Like, comprehensive analysis, yes, but on the business end, not necessarily on the technical end.
Well, and it's still that mealy-mouthed bull hockey of them trying to say that what their concern is that basically that Xbox Live gamers and Switch players are hooligans and are therefore going to somehow sully the sanctity of their pristine neighborhood should they allow them to come to the block party. And I'm like, that is completely asinine. Like, there is just as much harassment, crap, racism, whatever on the PlayStation Network as there is on Xbox Live. Maybe not on Nintendo Switch because maybe that demographic is a little different. But, like, they're still standing on that. And I'm like, you guys need to stop, right? And what this is great. This is The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi to me. Like, don't insult my intelligence, right? Gamers are smart people. It's a fairly technical hobby to be into. Yes, there are some dumb gamers, right? And there are gamers who have things and don't know how to connect them and play things wrong and only live stream, right? So yes, look, there are some people, but a lot of gamers are very intelligent people. Like, and you can't feed them bull and expect people to like that. So again, they haven't crossed the hump, right? I still feel like they're carrying that arrogance rock around in their pocket, which is the thing that they were wielding in at the beginning of Generation 7 that caused the PlayStation 3 to not sell for the first year and a half to 2 years of its cycle. And I'm like, look, just admit that you guys want all the money, right? Like that's all you have to do. Just say, we feel like we're the largest selling platform, and so we need to work out some type of revenue sharing deal with Epic if we're going to allow players from other platforms to interconnect with players on our platform, because somehow we feel maligned that, like, your bunny suit that you bought on Xbox Live, you want to bring it over into our neighborhood.
Enough said. Yeah, I don't know that there's an argument to that. I think it really is. It is coming from a place of market dominance, a place of potential arrogance. There's how much of this is a corporate decision, and how much of this is just they can do it because they can, right? Like the intentionality of this in order to try to maintain a market share, or the intentionality of it because they don't have to bend over for the lesser councils. I think that all of those things, everything you said is absolutely spot on. And the one thing that I will say is that by doing this, potentially, they reduce the likelihood that they enter the next generation with that same level of arrogance that they entered the PlayStation 3 generation.
So given the excerpt that you read, I'm not convinced now that they've come off the arrogance angle. But here's where I want to go with it, and here's what I want to ask. So, DB, this will give you a chance to put on your economics hat, and Swiss, this will give you a chance to do your technical analysis. So we're clearly coiling up and winding up for Generation 9. Xbox is clearly building a service army, and they're going to bring Hadoop and Azure and every firearm they can bring to bear, which I think is going to include a game streaming service that is akin to what we're about to talk about that Google is providing. Is the next battlefield for Generation 9 services, is PlayStation doing this so that they can pivot and allow themselves to be in position for that new battlefield? I've mentioned before how my assessment of Microsoft is that they are changing where the battlefield is going to be for Generation 9, right? That their maneuvering is, we're not going to fight your fight. We're going to pull the HD DVD thing, right? We're done arguing with you guys over what optical disc format needs to be in preeminence. We're going to focus on our digital delivery strategy, and we're going to get that into people's homes first, because that's really where the next battlefield is going to be. They've kind of been doing the same thing. More so, people who you could argue I would have expected less of than Sony, because they haven't been in the video game space as long, like Google. Other people are starting to figure that out. Is this about Sony finally going, we need to stop being Nintendo stubborn and recognize what's going on and reposition ourselves and prepare to leap for Generation 9? I'll give the first cut to you, Swiss.
No, I don't think so, because we already see these services. I mean, yeah, we understand the industry, and it's just not the games industry. It's like the software industry in general is service oriented. You can't buy Photoshop anymore without it being a service. So, but we've already seen these things in PlayStation. I mean, they have PlayStation Now, and and yeah, is it in the, what the future will be, like what this Google story we're about to talk, where it's like pure stream? Yet, no. PlayStation Now, you don't download it, right? You actually just stream it across.
You used to only stream it, and now that was one of the other announcements that PlayStation 2 and 4.
They're already there, is my point. And so the Fortnite thing, I don't think ties into the service oriented. I think it's just they tried to play leverage their size. There was enough of a public backlash where they said, it's not worth it. Let's acquiesce and get a little bit of goodwill. And so that's what they did. But
you think they're really already there? Like PlayStation?
I didn't say they're already there. I'm saying that there are already signs that Sony is looking towards service-oriented features. I mean, they have implemented something. Now, you can say it's not as advanced as what Xbox is doing right now, or robust or fully, there's enough of a library or whatever. Like, yeah, I don't think that I don't think it's as good as what Xbox puts out there, but it's not like they're miles behind Microsoft here.
Yeah, they're not Nintendo. So yes, I would acquiesce to that. DB, what are your thoughts?
So on the services side, I could see where that angle might come into play, and I would bet that there was a conversation somewhere that was similar to that. I would also bet that there was a conversation similar to, say, for the people that have been turned off by this lack of crossplay and that have chosen to play on other platforms because they can merge their accounts. If we open it up to PlayStation and allow them to come on over because they already have it and they've got a thorough friends list over on PlayStation, the money that they might be spending on PC or Xbox then may be more likely to be spent on PlayStation, right? I think there's another numbers game there as well, is that, so we lose what they had before, but if we get them over here, we still get the cut if they're buying that stuff from the PlayStation Store.
Yeah, because their policy is, as I think we all realize, but for some reason the corporate suits there didn't, like, the reality of their policy is it was just going to incentivize people to not spend money on PlayStation. Like, why am I going to spend money when I have the option to spend money in a place that allows me to use it 3 different places? Why am I going to spend money in your place that only allows me to ride rides in your amusement park, right? It's like, it's stupid. Like, I don't understand why. Like, how can executives at that level, like, not?
And that's probably the spreadsheet that was sat down in front of somebody. Is here were the 3 months prior to E3,
right,
when the crossplay announcement happened. Here have been the 3 months since E3. Here's the comparison of what people have been spending, even within the Fortnite, within the PSN store related to Fortnite items, right? There's a metric there, and that probably did. Somebody in a tie said, "Oh," and got concerned.
Right. Challenge round, gentlemen. Now my question is this really about a potential threat to the PlayStation platform of dislodging the preeminence of their exclusives content? And what I mean by that is, are they thinking that in Generation 9, in Generation 8, the story has much more and very quickly swerved around to these community-level games. The story of Fortnite is a much bigger story in a lot of ways than God of War. When Fortnite goes to Season 6, like, they're at a lull right now. When they go to Season 6, there's going to be another groundswell that may drown out the conversations about Spider-Man. Is there a concern that as the industry becomes more service-centric, that it also becomes more community-centric, which seems to be the way it is potentially tending? And does that put PlayStation at risk? Because I have to say, now, any individual exclusives title, I still contend, is a pebble on a pond, right? But in aggregate, that's the one thing that PlayStation holds on to. As you mentioned, Swiss, their backwards compatibility streaming catalog approach is not as robust as Xbox's. PlayStation Plus, PlayStation Network, I would still contend, is not as robust as Xbox Live overall. Really, the one nugget that breaks the PlayStation 4 out from the other consoles is the presence of exclusive titles. Is that strategic anchor point at threat? And I don't know why I turned my
silence. No, this is good, right? I mean, the fact that we both have to think about this.
Yeah. My thought has been that PlayStation in the past used to have a far greater number of exclusives, and you're describing it as a threat, but my mind goes to the publisher that does rely on exclusives almost exclusively for their revenue, and that's Nintendo. And I don't see them slowing down anytime soon. You got a lot of IPs and that are excellent.
Sorry, I'm
Zelda,
just laughing because I'm thinking about this fall and Nintendo slowing down. We get Mario Party as our big fall release, people.
You can't discount the power of Super Smash Brothers, DP. That is a I can't even.
No, right. I'll give you that, but it's still only 2 releases this fall. So,
okay.
Anyhow, I'm derailing you. So sorry. Continue.
My point is, when I say I don't see them slowing down, I mean, it's not like the Switch is suddenly going to go away and then Nintendo's never going to come out with a new console. Like, they're not going to go bankrupt. All right. They're always going to have, their island of fans because people need Mario and they need Zelda. Okay. Now with Sony, do you see that level of loyalty for their first party IPs? I mean, yeah, I loved Horizon Zero Dawn, but am I buying a PlayStation 5 specifically so I can play Horizon Zero Dawn 2? No, because that experience is not it's not such a unique experience like a Zelda or a Mario is. There's a lot of open world action RPGs out there on the market right now. There's a lot of superhero. I mean, you can get a superhero action game on the market right now. Is it maybe as polished or as cool as Spider-Man? Maybe, but perhaps not. But you say these are exclusives, but they're not exclusive experiences. So, I don't really see it as a threat. As the reason that drove them to Fortnite.
But I think we're coming around. Let me make sure I understand what you're saying, and then maybe I'll try and clarify what I'm saying. So what it sounds like to me you're saying is that the exclusives on PlayStation are not a thing to hang your hat on from a strategic perspective, because you can play those experiences or like experiences on other platforms, right?
Yeah, I suppose that's a good way of saying it.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're saying, and at least from a hypothesis standpoint, we're kind of saying the same thing. What I was saying was that I think an argument can be made, and a hypothesis can be forwarded that says in Generation 9, expect that the thing that will be more important is access to multiplayer, non-story oriented, community type experiences. Those will be more important to your platform than your single player story driven exclusives. And therefore, Sony, who's I would say their strategic rock that they hold, that is their strongest strength, is the latter, right? That
so you're saying that Sony is recognizing they don't have a good hand going into the next generation.
So DB,
this has been a great show because there's been so many times that we're not all in agreement, and that doesn't always happen here with us cantankerous crew. So I would argue that this move allows them to play that hand of first party exclusives. It makes it even more powerful, because if there is parity across platforms, that if you can bring your account, no matter what platform you're playing, and if those third-party games, whether they're free to play or they're big AAA experiences, are on both platforms or all, all 4 platforms, whatever ends up happening, right? That if you can play that same game everywhere, then it becomes, what's the online service? What's the hardware? And what other games are unique to that platform? And then Spider-Man, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, Bloodborne, all of those become even more important because, I can play it, as a as a household that has both Xbox and PlayStation, I can play most third-party titles on either platform. You know, fine. But then here is that bank of other titles that I can only play on PlayStation. So I probably am going to spend more time there. Or if I have to decide between both of those consoles, I think it makes Sony's, what they've seen as their strength this generation. If they have that parity across platforms and across accounts, then they can play that card and it becomes even stronger.
Yeah. We won't get into it fully tonight, but I think then there's something to be said about what is Microsoft doing about the point of entry cost, though, right? That it looks like they're going to have a SKU that's going to be probably like a $99 or $150 hockey puck that you attach to your TV, and that accepts an Ethernet cable, if it's not solely Wi-Fi, and is a low end kind of like Sony had when they had the PlayStation portable TV thing, but that will just basically be a hockey puck that attaches to your TV and allows you access to Game Pass and the library of games. And then what Sony has to contend with is, are they going to come out with a $399 console when Microsoft has a lower, cost entry point? But
yeah, I think that's a great point. And hopefully, now with the Xbox, whatever their game experience show that's going to be happening, their fan show that's happening in November, potentially we get a little bit of some information about that too.
Yeah. So the final topic is, what is Google up to with their streaming service? So I guess word basically slipped to today. Was when I saw the official, but we've known for a while that they're testing an in-Chrome game streaming service supporting Assassin's Creed Odyssey. What I saw today was the official announcement that it is actually going to be a thing. I think all of us signed up for potential offers or opportunities to actually have an opportunity to test it, and we should be hearing back on that in a few weeks. Internet connection requirements are 25 megabits per second, which I will admit, on FiOS I now exist in a reality distortion bubble, so that's a low bar to me. But I'm not really clear on what like the rest of the country is at on cable internet. I know when I came off of cable, I think I was at like 30 megabits per second. So yeah, so this is a AAA title, dripping with, all the bells and whistles. I would assume that they're not going to be streaming it in 4K, so I'm assuming this is a 1080p HD stream. And it just kind of makes sense from a capability standpoint, right? Gamers are able to live stream their games out. It would make sense that Google could stream their game in. Now, the most recent conversation that I've heard, and I'm interested in, is what exactly is that technology in terms of, are they streaming you the game, or are they streaming you a rapid series of bitmaps that show you what's happening on the screen, and what you're sending back as your control inputs, which I guess was like the on live. Well, I guess I've heard three ways, right? Actually streaming you the game, which means the technology is operating kind of the same way it operates when you are playing multiplayer. Streaming you a series of rapid bitmaps that are just basically sending you 2D representations of what's happening on the screen. And then the third way, I'm losing my grip on now, is basically an RDP implementation. So you're basically remote desktoping in and accessing the game in the same way you might RDP into a Windows desktop solution in AWS or some other service. So I don't know. I mean, we all signed up for this. Did we all sign up for this because we're excited about this, because we think this is the way that we're going to be playing, and we're interested in seeing that future arrive?
So I signed up for it because the same reason I tried out Game Tap back in the mid-2000s, the same reason that I tried out GameFly's streaming service, the same reason that I tried PlayStation Now for a month, right, is to see how this works, right? To try out the technology to see if it does provide access to something that the barrier of entry is relatively high, right? That buying, even at its best right now during a holiday shopping season where we're talking about a $200 console, it's still a significant buy-in price, where if you can take the computer that you already have, and if this is running on Chrome, which also means that potentially your $60 Chromebook could also be running this, because it is just remote, not even remoting in, but it is treating it as, it's your dummy terminal almost, right? So it is a curiosity more so than it is my hope that it's the future. It certainly could be possible. I think my hesitation about it is one that I'll kick right over to Swiss, is that, as you said, Agasicles, it works really well when you're that hardwired, FiOS super fast lifeline. But if you're in parts of the country where that is not even accessible, or it's price prohibitive, this is going to be a challenging direction to move as well. So, Swiss, how about you? Is this, you signed up for it, but you've got some caveats to it, correct?
Yeah, I live in a part of the country where good internet is not accessible yet. So it's only been in the last, literally my house where I live, the best internet I have, and what I'm broadcasting to you on now, right now, the best I can get is 10 megabit DSL. That's it. I can't get cable. If I want, I'm like Agasicles. I do everything Netflix and Amazon Prime, and I put an antenna on my roof. But if I wanted the vast suite of the cable packages, I'd need to use DirecTV. No cable. So it's only been in the last year that my county, a company has stepped up in my county to bring fiber out into the county at large. So I signed up for that. I have my deposit down, and I'm waiting for the installs. So it could be months before I get it. At work, though, they have a really, really fast internet connection. So if I'm going to test this out, I'm literally going to have to go into my office to do it. The other nice thing about that is I can test it on a regular office laptop, and it wouldn't be my Ryzen 5 GTX 1080 PC that I'm testing it on. So I'm a little bit curious about how well it will work. I'm more intrigued at the fact that they're doing it with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I'm like, hey, if I can get to play Assassin's Creed Odyssey for free, yeah, that's a good deal. So that's why I signed up. I'm like DB though. I'm hesitant to tie my hobby to the to bandwidth. 25 megabits. When I have my fiber, yeah, that's not. I'm not going to be using like 90% of my capacity or anything like that. But if there's a hiccup or something, it can affect the quality of the game. I will liken it to, I have a PS4. Have either of you guys experimented with remote play on that? So go ahead, DB.
No, I was so psychologically scarred by that experience on the PlayStation 3 that I can't go back. But like physically sitting in my apartment on the same blasted network, unable to get my PlayStation Portable to work with my PlayStation 3 because the PlayStation Portable was going out into the world of the internet and coming back in. Like, no, thank you, sir.
Well, it may have improved since then a little bit, but I can, even though, like you said, I'm on the same Wi-Fi network in my house, and I got a really nice gamer-friendly router. It's not. I'm not on the one from the ISP. I bought a nice one, so I can still tell that I'm streaming the game. And it's not for all this talk about. They talk about the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One, and look how fantastic it is. Are you really going to get 60 frames per second in 4K or 60 frames per second in 1080p on a service like this consistently. And they may not be targeting gamers like us. They may be targeting the people that are happy to get 20 frames per second on their POS laptop, and they're still struggling to play, Destiny at lowest settings. So, and if you're satisfied with that, maybe it is a good way to play a AAA title that you otherwise wouldn't have the gear to leverage.
Well, and I would take that as not necessarily a slam or a dig against people that are not in 4K. No, I don't think you did at all. But I think that becomes the question, and in some ways this is a good kind of segue into future discussions, is because I think coming into this holiday season and other things, that idea of what is our expectations, what are our expectations for gaming, as many of us are very fine with our Switch, but also we love our 4K TVs, that what's that trade-off that we're willing to take? Are we willing to take a low barrier to entry and a low frame rate and resolution if I can play the newest, hottest game like Assassin's Creed, or is it not worth the potential latency lag to save up to have a better quality experience? But is that price prohibitive? So, yeah, I think it's a really good question. I am really curious to see how this plays out, and exactly what you said, Agasicles, and how this plays out not only in Google's efforts, but also in what the next generation looks like for the current console platforms as well.
Yeah, and we know EA is working on a similar strategy, right? And I'm sure other people are as well. It's not just the cost prohibition, right? But there's opportunity cost. There's I don't know how I want to term it, but look, there are things I don't do because they would be a pain in my butt, right? That I'm just like, nope, it's just not worth it for me to get into that, or to leverage that, or to figure out how to do that easily. And look, I get it. There are some people who the self-administrative maintenance footprint of owning a complicated high-end PC, or owning something more complicated than like a Chromebook, right, is a burden. And so if you can pivot that barrier so that the barrier to entry is that, look, just go to Walmart and buy a PlayStation controller, right? And that's it. That's you already have a Chromebook, go buy a PlayStation controller. Moves the bar on that and has the potential to open up the envelope of the degree of diversity and inclusiveness that you might have in the gaming community. And then you're going to have strata, right? You're going to have people like us, and even amongst us, we're stratified as well, right? I'm testing a game capture card for Gray, and I'm having to test it a certain way because I think he's more discriminating than I am about latency on screen, right? I'm okay if I'm doing a pass through a game capture card to get a millisecond or two of latency. I've got to test it to his parameters, so I don't think that he'll put up with that. So, I mean, these services have the potential to change, like I said, kind of change the battlefield on who's in the market, and who cares about what at different levels. At the end of the day, I'm not giving up my hardware, right? Like my Xbox will be here physically with me. My PlayStation will be here physically with me. Swiss, as you mentioned, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was about to pivot, so go ahead and finish your question.
Yeah, no, just I'm unwilling. My level of sensitivity to putting up with some of that stuff isn't there because I know I don't have to, right? Now, eventually there's going to come a day where like the hassle of all the cables running everywhere and like the extreme power draw in the studio, right, is going to push me to a point where I'm like, maybe if I just have like a 19-inch monitor and a controller, then I'll be fine. But that's not today. But for some people, that will be great. So I don't know, Swiss. What else did you want to
add? I know we're pressed up against it for time, but am I the only one here that doesn't like that it's Google doing this?
It doesn't. I mean, from my perspective, there are only 3 companies that have the ability to pull this off: Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. So, and no one of those 3 is any less evil than the other.
Yeah, I think that's a fair. I mean, I think the assessment of the 3 big bandwidth providers that could have the server space to do this on a large scale. That
Facebook too, probably, but
yeah, potential. I mean, that's right. It's all. Yeah, I don't know that any of those kind of any of those 4 stepping into this market, wouldn't or shouldn't cause people to have concerns. But I think the same concerns would be said if it was EA using their GameFly streaming to come into this market as well. Is that I think there are segments of the gaming population that would have concerns over that because of EA's business practices and things as well.
Yeah, well, I think that fairly well rounds us out. I don't have anything to add. I think, DB, you're done. And Swiss, I think that was your last stake to throw, right?
Yeah, my brain's fried.
All right. Well, thanks so much for everybody for either joining into the live show or if you happen to be swinging by and checking out this video in archive format on YouTube. This is the new format. Hope you enjoy it. It's going to be this way for a while. Next week, we'll be doing our GX show, which is, again, a format you'll be familiar with. We're doing a slight tweak with the Picks Plays approach. I will get some of that information out on Twitter. We're doing game assignments now that the whole crew is going to be doing at the same time. Just to give you a little bit of it. So we're over the last week and this upcoming week, we're taking a look at games that have faction and reputation systems in them. That's kind of our homework assignment. Pick a game that has that in it and then deliberately try and play around with that faction and reputation system and see just how much impact there really is in terms of how the game's engine is tied to your outcomes. So more on that will follow probably on Twitter, or we'll just let you listen in on the conversation next week when we actually do the show. So thanks so much for joining us on behalf of the E2KG Network, Gearworks.com, and the Rounding Off Affinity Gaming channel on YouTube, as well as DBq Hams and SwissGuard. My name is Agasicles Stamas. That's going to do it for episode number 64 of the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast here on the 2nd of October, 2018. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.